All right, welcome to part 9. I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping this series. In today's video, we'll be focusing on kind of the management side of this app, so the ability to actually add movies to our list, edit them, and if we have time, delete as well. So basically wrapping up our CRUD, because right now we only really have read in a list view and a detail view, but we don't have anything for creating, and we don't have anything for updating and deleting, which is what CRUD stands for. Okay, so first things first, I want to do just a tiny refactor because there's just some naming convention I don't really like about this after kind of thinking about this more. We've called this block the movie retrieve block, which to me retrieve is more the action than the actual what it represents, which to me the word detail actually works a little bit better here. Of course, the detail block will retrieve a movie, but it could also be used for other things at some point, maybe like liking a movie or whatever other stuff we might add in the future. So I kind of want to do that, refactor and rename. I'm going to do that just off camera really quickly right now and walk you through just what happened because it's a little bit tedious and boring, and will take probably at least 5 to 10 minutes to do. So I'll catch you in a moment. All right, it's been taken care of. Basically, I've renamed the folder to movie detail, and all the files instead of movie retrieve is movie detail, and everything within it, the class names, everything like that. It actually wasn't that hard to do because VS Code has a great refactoring tool. I could kind of take any of these and go rename symbol and change it to something else, and it will go through the code base and change those for me. So it's always nice to do a refactor. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is we are going to create stuff for our editing of a movie and creating a new movie and deleting a movie. I think we'll start with create. So we're going to create a totally new block for this. So what I'm going to do right inside my block folder is I'm going to use this new block. And we're I'm going to call it movie manage because it's going to have to do with anything with managing it. So saving and deleting and all that kind of stuff. Now this will create a folder called block, which is not actually what we want. We want to actually call this movie manage. Okay, so let's look at our movie manage state. And we're just going to do that sort of rename that we did here. So I'm just going to do this just to show you how I did it before. I can just rename this symbol movie manage state initial. That way, inside the movie block that was generated, it will actually update it there too, which is really nice. Okay. So similar for this block, we are going to want to have a loading state as well. So we'll just make that like that. I want to have one, because the way we're going to be dealing with this is we're using Go Router and everything, and I want to make sure when we go to the edit page of a movie in the future that we're actually retrieving the most up-to-date version from the database. Specifically by just passing an ID in, meaning in our URL parameters, we can have an ID, making this kind of work without actually pushing the movie state, the actual movie object to the new page. We're just going to pass the ID in the route and actually fetch it. So therefore, we do want still a retrieve with this. So we'll call this retrieve success. So we successfully retrieved, one from the database. And this will actually have a movie within it. So we'll just call it movie. And we'll import that guy in. And we'll want to obviously then take this and pass in this .movie as the required parameter. We're going to do something similar for failure. So we'll just call this movie manage state failure. And we'll pass a message in and this .message. Then this one will be pretty similar to this one, so I'm going to copy it. We're going to have, hey, you've done a save, so we'll call it movie manage state save success, and that will also require a movie to be passed in, just like that. And then in the future, when we have delete working, we're going to want to sort of have a event or a state that's like, hey, the delete was a success, so let's have that there. So here's our different states that I can imagine we will need for this. And really all we need right now to kind of get started, we can kind of ignore this delete one, that will come later, probably also not even in this video, but I'm getting it set up and ready to go. Okay, let's go to our events as well. So in our events, we're going to have our movie manage event. And we're going to take a final class called movie manage retrieve event. So this is us just going, hey, give me the latest version of this just by passing it an ID. So we will extend, of course, movie manage event. And this, instead of having a movie, we're actually just going to have an int of the ID. And we'll use this guy and require this to be passed in, this.id. Okay, so that is that. Then we're going to have a save event. So let's copy this one. So movie manage save event. And this is where we'd actually pass in the either new movie or updated movie. So we'll call it movie. This.movie. Okay, and then, yeah, just to kind of future-proof this, I'm going to grab any of these, I guess, and we'll have our movie manage delete event. So when we want to actually delete something. And in this, we're not going to worry about passing the whole movie across. We're just going to pass the movie ID. So we'll just call it movie ID so it's really clear. Movie ID. Okay, great. So we have our events figured out. Let us now go to our block and get that sort of in order. Okay, so our block, we are going to have our, anytime an event happens, we are going to want to emit just that loading event. So I'll just shorten this and basically go emit, and we'll use movie manage state loading, anytime something like that happens. Okay, then let's get some use cases figured out here. Actually, let's start at the top here because there's some new stuff we probably need to do. So let's actually go right to our data sources, and we'll go to our movie data source. So we have a list and we have a retrieve. We are also going to want a save, and the save function will actually just take a movie in. And you know what, while we're here, maybe we'll actually add the delete as well. So I'm going to pass this one. We'll call it delete. We're going to pass the ID in our data source, but it's not going to return anything. It's just going to be a void when we actually, call it. And then let's create these two missing overrides here. I'm going to put delete at the end. Just makes more sense. And so for our save, we kind of already have something to do this. Let's open up our movie endpoint back on the Serverpod side. We have a create event. However, I think we can make this a little bit smarter, where we actually just call it save. And what we'll do is we'll check if this movie already has an ID. If so, we will just kind of update the existing one. If it doesn't have an ID, we will do what we're doing right here. So in order to do that, we can basically check. So we can still return await. And then within these brackets, we can kind of do a check here. We can check movie.id does not equal null. In the case that it does not equal null, we can go movie.db.update row. And here we pass in the row and we pass in the movie. And Serverpod will be smart enough to figure out, okay, it has this ID. I'm going to update the same one with that ID. Very good. Otherwise, we'll basically do this code here. You'll notice I'm awaiting everything outside this bracket so that I don't have to have await twice. Just a handy thing we can do there. So there we have it. Let's see if I can make it a little bit cleaner. No, I don't think I can. That's okay. So now we have this saved. Now, because we made a change to one of our endpoints, let's just go back to our Serverpod terminal, and we're going to run Serverpod generate. Hey, there's something we can fix. I haven't seen that error before. Let's just look up this. Let's get rid of this guy here. We want these always to be the same. Surprised we didn't see that before. I wonder if there's like a slightly newer version that came out since we started making this series. So let's run generate again, even though I don't even think that'll be a problem. And then let's run our server just by going dart bin main.dart. All right, going back to the Flutter side on our save data source. Basically, all we really need to do here is run await client.movie.save. That's our updated thing, and pass in that movie that's being put right here. Now, we need to make this asynchronous, of course. And we do want to wrap this in a try. And we say have a catch where there's an error. And if there's an error, we're going to throw a server exception, and we'll pass in e.toString just to actually get the message that's being returned. We also want to make sure we're actually returning the result of this, because you'll see this actually is going to return a movie itself. because that's what our endpoint actually does if you look at it, future movie. So we're conforming to this, everything's great. And yeah, let's just do delete while we're at it, because it's a little bit easier, I think, to kind of be doing it throughout each of the files. So let's go back to our endpoints here, and let's make a new endpoint. This will be a future void. It's not going to really do anything, return anything. And we're going to want session. And here we're going to have not a movie, but we're going to have an int of the ID. That's all we really need to delete it. We don't need the whole movie object to be passed up. So here we're just going to await. And we want to basically use our movie.db dot, and here we can go delete where. And what we want to do is actually delete, and we can put a clause here of like what ones we want to delete. Technically this could delete multiple things, but because we're going to be targeting the ID, we know the ID is going to be unique. We'll only actually delete one thing. And here how it works is you actually get a function, and we'll just use row as kind of like the variable here. So, and what we're going to do is kind of check where the row dot ID dot equals, and we want to pass in the ID that's being passed in here. So this will look and delete any rows with an ID of that, and we'll just, we don't even have to really return anything here. We're just going to wait, and it will go and do its thing. All right, let's generate again. And let's run our server. And that means in here, I'm just going to copy this. And what we can just do is go await client.movie.delete and just pass in that ID. And of course, mark this as async. Okay, so now we have our data source figured out for saving and deleting. And saving is really nice because we don't have to think about, oh, are we creating it or updating it? No, it's just going to, if it already has an ID, we are going to update because the server is just going to handle that for us. All right, so there's our data source figured out. So let's go and now go into in our domain. We'll go into our repositories and our movie repository. And let's create the delete one here, because that's pretty similar to retrieve. The only difference is it's going to return void when there's a success. And then let's copy this one again, and we'll call this save. And we're going to be passing in a movie called movie. It's also going to return a movie because we want to get the updated version back. Maybe the server is going to normalize some data for us, trim some stuff, process some stuff, or at the very least, it's going to provide an ID back for us that we're going to want for the future. So that's why we kind of are sending up a movie and getting back potentially a slightly different movie. Okay, now we go to our implementation, and of course, we need to create these two missing overrides here. And let's just move delete to the bottom, the way I like it. And let's make sure that delete, I'm going to put this at the bottom too. All right, for our save, let's just do our normal wrapping in a try catch. And we're specifically looking for a server exception. And as usual, if something goes wrong, we will return left, and we'll return a failure using the e.message. Make this async. And what we'll be doing here is we're going to return a write, and we're going to await the data source dot save, and pass in the movie. Okay, this will basically be the same thing, more or less. The main differences are we are going to be calling delete here. And we will do and pass this ID over, and that's it. There we go. Movie repository done. All right, let's get to our use cases. So we will need a save movie use case, and let's also just make our delete movie. Okay, for our save movie use case, let's just grab our retrieve movie one, just to kind of have a starter pack. And we'll just change this to save movie use case. And we'll call this save movie params. You know, there's a pattern here. But we'll be passing in a movie called movie. And yeah, this dot movie. And then params dot movie here. And we change this to save. And that's it. There you go. We have our save movie. Similarly, let's just make our delete movie params here, or delete movie use case. So we'll just call this delete movie use case. And here we're going to be returning void, not a movie. So we'll just update that there, and we'll also update it here. And we're going to instead call delete, and it'll be params.id. But we'll need to rename this to delete movie params. And instead of passing in a movie, we are just passing in an ID like this. And yep, I missed one. Delete movie params. Get rid of this. Call it a day. Okay, use case is done. So let's register some of this new stuff in our dependencies now. So let's get out of auth and go inside movie. And let's register our use cases, our new ones. So we'll do save movie use case. And we'll have delete movie use case. Cool. Then we have our 2 blocks here, but we're going to make a third one. So let's have our movie manage block. And currently this doesn't take anything, but we're about to fix that right now. So let's get our block open. And we're going to want to essentially import in or require, these to be injected. So we're going to have a final save movie use case. And so we'll call it save movie. We're also going to have one for our delete movie use case. Delete movie. And as I mentioned earlier, we're actually going to use the retrieve movie use case that we already have because we want to be able to actually load a movie just from our ID whenever we come to the edit page. So we'll just do that. And then right here, we can just do required this dot. Let's actually do retrieve movie first. Required this dot save and required this dot delete. Save all that. Let's put retrieve at the top. And now we get this little error here, so we're actually going to fix that. So retrieve movie, and we will just use essentially we can actually just copy this right here. It's the same thing. And we'll just copy this twice. And what do we have? Save movie and delete movie. And this will be save movie use case, delete movie use case. Okay, so everything's good. There's also something weird with the imports happening here. I think it's because the extension is expecting that we are just using bloc and not Flutter block. So I'm actually going to remove these, and we're going to go like this block and get it from here. And we will have another error here too, because inside the state, it's marked as immutable, which comes from foundation. So let's do that. It was coming from meta previously, but we'll just use foundation so that we don't have to install a different package. Okay. All right, so that I think deals with the block part of our movie management. So now we're going to make a totally new page called movie, and I'm going to call it edit page because although this will be used also for creating a new one, it's going to be used to edit an existing one. Okay, and this will be a stateful widget, so we'll just start it as one instead of converting it to one after. We're going to call this movie edit page. Now our edit page is going to allow a movie ID to be passed into it optionally. So you see it's marked there. And then that way we can just go this dot movie ID. And this would be for when you're editing one. So we'll just have that ready to go for later. And because this is a page, we're also going to set up our route. So we'll do kind of what we did before for our detail page. And let's actually just look at that one. Detail page. We kind of have this cool route thing, which I'm going to basically take this. But what we can actually do is have this slash edit. So we movie slash edit slash, the ID of it. And this is just doing that nice little trick that I showed you where we can kind of use the same functionality for both getting the route in Go Router as well as actually pushing to it. So that this is a nice way to do it. Now, I also want to make another route because we're going to be able to get to this from 2 different ways. You want to be able to push to a different route that's just movie/new, just to keep our URLs really nice. Now, in a an iPhone app, the URLs don't really matter what they look like, but in a web app, which in theory this could be deployed to, we want our sort of URLs to look nice. So we're actually going to have 2 routes: a route and just a route for new. This one will not actually require this, and this will make sense a little bit later when we actually hook it up. Okay, so inside our edit state, let's remind ourselves what a movie kind of looks like. So let's just go to our movie.yaml on the Serverpod. So we have title, year, image, logline, and director name. We also have image URL. That will come later in a future video. If I have the time, I'd like to do also like how do we work with images and stuff in Serverpod. So we'll come back to that one. But let's get this sort of hooked up here. So we're going to make a title controller, and it's just going to be a text editing controller. And we'll also have a year controller and two more, logline controller and director name controller. We'll just keep the names, as similar as possible. Okay, then we need our normal form key sort of thing. So we'll just put this here. We've done this a million times. There's our form key. And by a million, I mean we've done it 3 times. This is our fourth page that has some kind of form on it. All right, so something that might be helpful because we are kind of dealing with the editing and creating of the same page. I'm going to make a getter just within this class called isEditing. And this will just return either true or false if this is like an edit. Because there's a few places we're going to want to do stuff differently if we're editing versus showing one. And here we can just go we can return if widget.movieID does not equal null. And just to be safe, and you'll see why in a little bit, my widget.movieID does not equal, or let's just say is greater than 0. There we go. So this is something we're going to use to, instead of having to type this same logic out in multiple places, we're just going to have it here to know when we are actually editing something. Okay. Now, let's get our init state out of the way. So we'll just start with a init state. We will run it. And then what we can actually do is if we are editing, so here's our first use of this, we're going to do our context.read, and we're going to use our movie management block. And we're going to add a new event in, and it's going to be the movie manage retrieve event. And we're going to pass in widget.id. Widget.movieID, like that. We happen to know that it is not null because this isEditing is already kind of guarding that for us. So what this will do, if you come here and there's an ID basically in the it being passed in, it's going to go and actually retrieve it, which we'll still need to do and add into our block. Okay, let's see now. We need to return a scaffold here as usual. And let's start by having just an app bar, and we'll just make it empty for now, but it's there and ready for us in the future. Let's have a body, and I'm just going to temporarily put text, and we're actually going to use this thing to wrap it in a block consumer, because we want both the listener and the builder. And here we're going to use movie manage block and movie manage state. Right there. Okay, we'll come back to the listening, but let's actually figure out our builder here. So what we can do is go if state is movie state loading. As normal, we're just going to return a loader. Okay, otherwise, we're going to return ultimately a form. And that form is going to have the key, form key, form key like that. I wonder why this is complaining. Child is required, of course. Yeah, we're going to have some children. But I am going to wrap this form just in some padding. And we're going to wrap this whole thing in a single child scroll view, just because, this form might get pretty long. And if someone's on a smaller device, they'll run into problems. So we'll just wrap with widget and do single child scroll view. Okay, so inside our form itself, we're going to have a column. And it's going to have some lovely children here. Okay, so let us, I'm just going to put these in because we've pretty much done this before for the login page. So it's just a text form field. We're calling it title. And, we're going to have that for title required. We'll do another one. This will use the year controller. And we'll just say, we'll just call this year and say year required. What we can also do with year, because we technically we want it to be a, make sure it's a number. So we can actually go if, and we can go int.tryParse and take the value equals null. Then we can actually return invalid year. So this will essentially, the try parse is a nice way because it will return null if it doesn't actually parse something correctly. You can do more logic here, make sure it's like, a positive number, make sure it's not a number in the future, like whatever, but I'm not going to worry about that now. Another little helper we can do is we can actually add input formatters, which will kind of prevent anything weird from happening. And we can just use one of the built-in ones. We can use filter, text input formatter digits only. So this will allow only digits to come in. And if we wanted to be really fancy, we could also take our keyboard type and let me just remember what this is. It's text input type dot digit or dot number, I think. Yeah. And then, if someone's doing this in iOS, which we will be, and we show the keyboard, it'll actually just be those sort of like number things. There we go. So we have that one there too. And let me just copy this again because we'll make one for, what was our next one here? We have log line. Yeah. So let's do log line controller, log line. And we'll just say log line required. And for this, we can actually do like a min line of 3 and a max line, max lines. Something is complaining here. Oh, oops, I thought I typed min lines. There we go. Min lines and max. So that will start it kind of as like a text area, and it will grow up to 6 rows essentially if we do it that way, which will be nice for our users. And then lastly, we have the director name, so it'll be pretty similar to this. And let's just put this here, and we'll have director name controller, director name required. Okay, so we have all of our lovely form fields. So now that is basically it for this screen. Let's get it connected to our router. So what we're going to do is we'll just go after the detail page. I'm just going to grab this one and put it here, and we'll call this movie edit page dot route and movie edit page here. And what we're going to do is copy this again. We're actually going to change this to route new. So if we basically come to the /new one, it'll just be a movie edit page as normal. But this one right here, we're actually going to pass in some parameters here. So we're actually going to go movie ID is going to be equal to our state, which we need to actually name this something, state dot, and we take our path params, and we just want ID because if we actually look at the movie edit page, it'll be like this right here, right? So we actually want to access it like that. Now this can technically be null, so I'm going to make it actually go back to a 0. Now the problem here is we have to pass an integer in. So what we're actually going to wrap it in is an int.parse, and basically parse all of this. And if for some reason that's null, we're going to fall back to 0 here, and get rid of this const because it's now dynamic. So that's why we kind of had that logic about it being 0. So like if for some reason, it isn't parsing to a number, it'll just kind of consider it as if it's a new one. And then because we have the 0 in our edit page here, we're actually checking, if it's greater than 0 and it's not null, then we know we're editing something. Okay, so we have our movie edit page now. So let's actually get triggering to go to this page. So I think from the detail page, we can actually put something in the app bar. So let's find our app bar. There's our scaffold app bar, and let's give it some actions. And I'm thinking we just have a icon button to keep it simple. Oops, icon button. And on press, we'll do something cool. Otherwise, and then for the icon, we'll use icons.edit with a cool little pencil tool. Let's just see if that shows up nicely up there. There she is. And here we would just go context.push. And we want to take our movie edit page dot route, and we are going to pass in our movie ID. So here we would just use movie.id. So that'll allow us to get to there from an edit screen. I'm going to copy this, and we're actually going to go back to our movie list screen, or page rather. And right now we don't have it. Let's add a floating action button. And we can have an onPressed event, and the onPressed event will basically do this again, except we don't have a movie. In this case, we're going to use movie edit page dot route new, which will bring us to that new route, not passing in an ID. Okay, and I guess we should probably have a child on this. So an icon, icons.add. Okay, so let's just make sure we can get to that screen and see if everything's good. So first of all, from here, I have a floating action button. I can get here. I have, wow, some kind of thing there. And I think it's just because the order of doing these maybe. Yeah, so what's kind of happening here is we're going to /movies/new, and this route is actually picking that up because it is /movies/whatever. So I think we can fix this actually just by having all of these above that sort of final one. So let's just see if that actually solves our problem. If not, we might just have to kind of change our namespaces a bit. So let's just see if I go here. Okay, cool. Technically it's not working, but we got past that error. Let's also try this one. So why is this happening? Well, it's, I think, pretty obvious at this point. We did not register this in our multi-block provider. So let's just grab this guy and actually register our movie manage block. And just do a full rebuild. And come into this and click edit. Okay, cool, we have our form, yay. And then if we go here, we also have our form. All right. So yeah, let's get this figured out. So our movie edit page, the last thing, well, not the last thing, but the next thing I guess we need. I realized, oh, yeah, here's our scaffold. So within our app bar, let's actually just add an action, and we can just use a icon button again, and this can essentially just be icons.done. I think that one will look nice. Yeah, let's just learn how to type. Okay, so now if I am on the edit page, I now have this little check mark button here. Awesome. So now we need to do some logic when we actually save this. So let's figure that out next. Okay, the first thing we can do is we can actually validate our form. So let's do that as normal. So we can go if form key.currentState.validate, then we'll do stuff. So we'll run that, meaning if I actually click this now, we should see a whole bunch of errors as expected. Okay, but what do we actually want to do when this works? Well, what we want is we're going to essentially create a movie, and we're going to go movie. Let's import that. And first of all, we want to pass the ID, and we're going to use the widgets.movie ID, which could be null, which works totally fine for us. This is allowed to be null. Basically, a movie that's not saved in the database is null, so we'll do that. Then we want to take its title, and we're going to use our title controller.text. Then we need a year, and here we can use year controller.text. However, we do need to parse this, so we'll just do an int.parse around it. You might want to make this a little bit safer where you do some extra validation, but we're already kind of validating that before this goes that it is an integer, so I don't see any issue with that. What else do we need? Well, image URL is required right now. Even though we're not dealing with it, we're just going to make it empty string. We need logline, so we can use logline controller.text and director. And here we'll use director name controller.text. Okay, then, so we've kind of constructed this like temporary movie in memory. Yay, we have one. And then we're just going to go context.read. And we're actually going to go and use the movie manage block.add. And we're going to add the movie manage save event, passing in that movie that we just made. And that will basically do it. Okay, going back to our block now. If I can find it, movie manage block. We've only done the, the thing for loading. So this will do something, but it will just do a loading thing. So let's actually get this finished up here. Okay, so yeah, we're passing in our things here. We got to have we're going to deal, let's just deal with that retrieve event. So I'll just copy this and we'll do movie manage retrieve event. So whenever we get the retrieve event, we are going to essentially run a function, and we'll just do it this way. And we'll just do on retrieve movie. I'm just going to copy this twice because we also want to handle our save event on manage save event. And we'll just call this on save movie. We will have, what's the last one? Yeah, the delete one. Movie manage delete event on delete movie. So let's just go into each of these, command period, to create a method for all of them. It's a good time saver right here. Okay, and we'll just make these all async. Okay, so our retrieving movie is pretty basic. We've already done this before. In fact, we could probably almost take it from our detail block. So we have a fetch movie, we call it fetch movie there, but that's fine. So I'm just going to copy this, although it will be quite a bit different. We at least get this part. The main difference is this will now be movie manage state failure and movie manage retrieve state success. I think it's something like that. Let's just see what we call it. Movie manage retrieve success. Movie manage state retrieve success. There we go. Okay, so we have our retrieve. That's fine. Everything's good. For saving, pretty simple as well. We'll just do final result equals await. We're going to use our save movie use case. And we're going to pass in movie and take it from event.movie. Which, oh, maybe this is, oh, wait, sorry, I missed one silly thing. We actually need to pass in our, it's the movie save params. Maybe it was called save movie params. Yep, save movie params. And here we pass in event.movie. And with this, we are essentially, very similarly, we're just going to be, folding on that when there's a failure. Otherwise, we're going to use the save success right here. And for delete, I'll just paste this in because it's basically the same as save. We're going to use our delete use case and just make sure it's imported here. And I think we just call this ID actually. Yeah. So there we go. We're going to delete it and we're going to do a failure if everything goes wrong, anything goes wrong, and delete success. We don't have to pass anything in here because it's a void. You'll actually see this is void. Cool. Okay, so now our block's actually hooked up and good to go. So let's go back to our movie edit page. And we want to do some fun things here. So first of all, let's get our listener hooked up because we haven't done anything in that yet. So within the listener, first of all, we're going to check, if the state is movie manage state failure. Let's do a show snack bar. And we'll just go state.message. Else, if state is, and here we'll have, let's deal with when a success happens of the saving. State, state save success. So if it's a successful save, what we're going to do here is we're going to want a context.pop because we want to kind of go back to the last page. However, in order to keep our state sort of up to date, we also want to kind of trigger another event to happen. We want to make sure that list view on the previous page gets refreshed so that you get there and you're like, oh yeah, I have that, the data is updated. So what we can do for that is we can go context.read and we can actually access our movie list block. And then we're going to add the just the normal movie list retrieve, movie list event. Is that what it's called? That's probably not what it's called. Fetch movies event. They're going to dispatch that event like that. And we should also, in the case that I was editing one, like say I was here and I went to edit one and made some changes and I come back, I also want to make sure this gets refreshed. So in this same thing, what we can do is we can first of all check, this only matters if we're actually editing, if is editing. And then in here, we can actually basically take this same thing, except we're going to use the movie detail block. And we're going to use the, let's remember what that's called. This one right here. Movie detail retrieve event. And here we actually have to pass in the movie, so the ID of the movie. And we'll just use widget.movie ID. And we know it's not null because, again, this guard is already checking for null. All right, so that kind of handles when the success happens. What else might happen is we might have a delete success. So let's handle that one. So if state is movie delete success. So if the delete was successful, then we are going to again call this again. We want to, yeah, this one right here. We want to kind of update the list. And then we want to actually context.pop twice. And the reason it's twice is, think about it. You're going to be on this page. We're going to have a delete button here. This doesn't exist yet, but it's going to be here. And we want it to not just pop back to here, because this page actually doesn't, won't really exist anymore in some ways. We want to kind of come back twice. So there we have our context.pop, everything's good. All right. And then lastly, let's just check else if state is movie manage state retrieve success. So this was, hey, we just came to the screen with an ID already set, and we needed to retrieve the latest one. So what we can do in this is actually take our title controller.text and essentially set it to state.movie.title. And we can do the same with year. So we'll do year. Sorry, I didn't. That's not correct. Year controller. Come on. .text is state.movie.year. Now, because this is an int, we need to then convert it back to a string to show up in the text box. Okay, then we have a few other ones. What were other ones? We have the log line. Where's my log line controller? Don't know why I wasn't auto-completing there, but logline controller.text is going to be this .logline. And director, I think it's just because I have that director name. I don't know why these aren't auto-completing for me. Director name controller.text is going to be .director name. So this will basically just say, it's going to pre-fill these with those. So let's actually just even test to see if that stuff sort of works. So in theory, if I come here and edit this, we actually see the data got put in because we did the retrieve and it went through. And the reason the retrieve happened is because on this init state, because we are editing one, meaning we were passing in an ID, it's actually doing this retrieve event. So we go and retrieve it, and then it actually sets the controllers here. All right, let's actually just try saving. Okay, so let's see if this even works. Let's actually, since I'm on this already, let's try changing the name of this to like Jurassic Park 2 and click this. And we actually see, look, it now says Jurassic Park 2. And if we go back to list view, it's actually Jurassic Park 2. And that's simply because, we were doing these, when the save was success, we're actually kind of refreshing, essentially invalidating and refreshing these things right here. So we're in a good place right now. Let's test making a new one. Let's do like super bad. That would have been something like 2005. Crazy high school drinkies. That's the log line. And I think it was Judd Apatow. And let's just click this. And we actually see, look, it's in here now. Released in 2005. We have all the details. We could come in and, of course, edit it. Superbad 2. That'd be cool. I'd watch it. And there we have everything working. Okay, so let's get delete figured out real quick. In fact, we're pretty much good to go with delete. The only thing that's missing is the fact that we need a delete button. So we're going to go back to the edit, to the form. And right at the bottom of this column, let's just go if is editing. Then we're going to have a, let's use an elevated button. So I'll just say delete. And let's actually wrap this in some padding so it just looks a little bit better. Some padding. I spelled const wrong. It's been a long day. So now we have this delete button here. And of course, we'd probably in a real world want to have like a confirmation message and stuff like that there. But let's just like trust our users and just do it. So here we should be able to just go context.read and use our manage, or our movie manage block. And we will do delete movie. And here we just have to pass in widget.movie ID. And something's wrong here. Let's just see what this actually looks like. Oh, it's a, I see the problem. We actually have to pass it kind of like ID is equal to this. Or is it movie ID? What is going on here? The ID isn't defined. Okay, hang on. Let's open this up again. Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot. We actually have to pass in. Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. I'm doing this totally wrong. This is not the way we're supposed to do it, guys. We're going to add a delete movie event. And here we passed in the movie ID. There. Widget.movie ID. And we know it's not null simply because this won't show up if we're not editing. Okay, so let's just go back here. Let's go to Superbad and let's go edit. And let's actually click the delete button here. And you'll see it actually popped back twice and the list has been refreshed and that one is no longer available to us. So yeah, everything's working. We have our CRUD. We have ability to create, which is, going through this. We have our ability to read. We've had that for a long time. That's, listing and retrieving. We have our update, which is when we're editing one right here. And we have our delete, which I'm not going to click because then our app will be completely empty and kind of useless. All right, I think that wraps up this video. I think I'm actually didn't really look at the clock. I feel like this one went a little bit longer, but we covered a lot of ground here, getting, the CRUD working for this, and I'm pretty happy with how it came together. So thanks for watching. I'm thinking in the next one, we start figuring out image uploads, which is kind of another piece of Serverpod that we haven't even, touched yet. So I think it's a good thing to do next, and I look forward to seeing you there.